Guys, I am so excited about today's guest. Alex Suber is the TikTok pastor. He has gotten over 18,000 subscribers on TikTok, and he's killing it right now. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this interview. It inspired me to start posting more consistently on TikTok, and on my TikTok for Church Candy, I've been seeing some great results. So I encourage you, listen, take notes. This is an amazing episode. And if you haven't gotten your free copy of my new book, Plan Your Visit Playbook, you can go to planyourvisitplaybook.com. There's a link in the description. This book walks you through step by step how to grow your church with digital marketing by getting people to plan a visit to your Sunday service. I lay it all out for you. The book is free. You just have to pay for shipping. And let's jump in. Welcome to the Church Candy Podcast, the podcast of sweet ministry success. I'm your host, Brady Sticker, and let's jump in. All right, guys, I have an awesome guest I'm super excited about. Today, we have Alex Suber with Oasis Church in, you guys are in Round Rock, right?
Round Rock.
That's like the North Austin area, correct?
Yeah. So we're about 20 minutes from the Capitol building in downtown Austin, right off just straight shot on I-35 going north. So yeah, we're in the suburbs. We're not quite cool enough to be downtown Austin, but we're loving it.
That's awesome, man. So I'm assuming your area is like exploding right now with growth, right?
Oh yeah. Actually, Round Rock is I guess kind of slowed a little bit because now even Round Rock is actually a pretty large city and has its own suburbs.
Oh,
But
wow.
like the housing market, like you can't find a house, let alone buy it because it's so expensive. Yeah, so lots of tech companies coming in. We've got the Tesla plant is about 10 minutes from our church, so we've got tons of people coming to work at that plant. We've got an Amazon distribution that just opened, I think, last year. So yeah, lots of growth, lots of momentum in the city, which is great in a lot of ways, but also challenging for people that have lived here for a long time, and the city's kind of changing and not everybody's excited about that.
Yeah, man. Joe Rogan and Elon Musk has everyone and their mom move into your area, huh?
Totally. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's like the reason everybody moved here is now they're trying to make it like the places they came from. And I'm like, hey, there's a reason you left those places.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Exactly.
I love it. This is where my family's always been from. So this has kind of always been home for me. So we
Sweet,
love
man.
it here.
Sweet. Well, go ahead, tell the audience a little bit about your background and Oasis's background.
Yeah. So just quickly grew up as a minister's kid. My parents were missionaries for a lot of years. So I lived in India for a while, lived in West Africa for a while when I was super young. And then my parents did kind of what I would call church revitalization. Not everybody may know that, but kind of going into a church that is struggling, maybe has been around for a while and just has not really seen growth. And they would kind of go in and help get things going and then go to a new church. So moved around a lot as a young person, and then was planning on going to LSU for pre-law and then going on to law and politics, and just had a radical kind of change of heart where it really what I like to say it where I was saved. Like I knew Jesus was my savior, but I didn't really make him Lord of my life. Like he really didn't have any impact on my life. I was just kind of making my own decisions.
Yeah.
And that led me on a process where I ended up going to a ministry school and then traveling, doing youth ministry, itinerant speaking. And then 2015 moved back here, and kind of a unique situation, partnered with my parents to plant a new church. So we started Oasis Church. We really started the whole process in early 2016. And then we had our first official Sunday in October of 2016 and have been rocking and rolling ever since. So in that period, I've gotten married, had 2 sons, and we're in the middle of building a new facility right now. We're going this Sunday. We're going back to 3 services, which is what we had before COVID. So we're kind of getting back to our pre-COVID numbers as far as attendance and things. So yeah, God's been good to us. It's definitely been a wild, almost 5.5, 6 years that we've been in this whole church planning journey, pastoring journey, but it's been fun.
That's so cool, man. I love that you were able to partner with your parents to launch Oasis. So I actually have a similar background to where I grew up in ministry and actually partnered with my dad to start a marketing company back
Hmm.
not far after whenever you guys launched Oasis back in 2017. Whenever
Wow.
I partnered with my dad to really take on and help with Cairo Candy, our marketing agency. And it's very interesting now that we've grown it to a place where we have hundreds of clients and dozens of team
Hmm.
members, and that I'm leading with my dad. And so, what's it been like
Right.
doing ministry with your family like that?
It's been amazing for the most part. I mean, there's definitely been challenges, but I think, and you probably have seen the same thing being an entrepreneur. When you're starting something, really no one is going to care about it as much as you. No one's
Yeah.
going to have the passion to stay up late, to wake up early, to innovate, to come up with solutions as much as you do. And so I think with the family, you're kind of multiplying that ownership type feel to where now it's not just one person or one couple, but it's actually two couples in our case that were doing that. And so it's been good. It's definitely been challenging because you have generational divide, you have different
Hmm.
leadership styles, but between the four, my parents and me and my wife, we have each one of us is a different letter on the disc model, so we have all four different personalities. And so it can be interesting, but also can be a huge help because you have people that can see things from different lenses and different areas. And I know that's one thing I'm very thankful for with my dad, as because I went to a lot of church plant training and different stuff. That was kind of the new way of doing things and kind of new
Yeah.
ideas. But he was really able to help me grow in a lot of kind of old school type things, so to say, that I
Yeah.
think are really, really valuable. That I don't think every church planner has the opportunity to learn some of those things. They kind of have to learn it by trial and error. And thankfully, dealing with people situations and legal stuff with churches and banking and a lot of those things people don't think about when you're talking about church, he has so much experience on. So it's really been helpful for us and our growth, both as leaders, but then also for the church's growth.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. That's one thing I feel like a lot of pastors that will, launch a new church through these organizations out there, and you think you've just got the whole world in front of you. You've got an awesome
Mhm.
network of other church planners, and then life happens, and some things happen that,
Right.
man, the ARC launch training did not prepare me for this, and so I bet it's
Yeah.
been huge having the wisdom of your dad and your parents right there alongside with you guys.
Totally, totally. Because there's such a difference. And I know a lot of people that are listening are pastors and church planners and stuff, but even entrepreneurs, there's such a difference between launching something, starting something, and then growing it and maintaining it. And I think that's why you have a lot of founders that end up leaving their companies. They step away as CEO after the first 5 years or whatever, because it's such a different skill set. And I think it's great that there's a lot of training to get launched, but then it's almost a total different skill set to then just pastor people. And it's no longer like a, hey, we're going towards this thing, we're going towards this thing. It's just kind of, hey, life, babies and marriages and loss and heartache and discipleship. And so yeah, I'm very, very, very thankful to have kind of both sides of that coin over the past couple of years.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Well, look, the reason why I reached out and wanted to have you on the podcast is because you are killing it on TikTok. Like, I don't even know, you have what, 15,000 not subscribers, followers on TikTok now?
I think I'm almost at 18,000.
Oh,
Yeah, a little over 17,000.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I did not mean to.
Get it right. Come on.
I'm
Come
I'm
on.
sorry.
I'm
I'm
just
sorry.
I'm just playing.
And I do want to talk about that for sure. But before we dive into that, like you guys are doing so many amazing things at Oasis
Mhm.
that I want to make sure that doesn't go overlooked. So, like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing in your ministry right now, aside from the social media stuff? What are some things that you guys think you're doing well?
Yeah, yeah. Well, a big part of our heart has always been um, unity among believers, but then also diversity of cultures, diversity of even some secondary doctrines and things like that. We have people in our church that may not agree on all secondary issues and things. We have Republicans and Democrats, but especially racial reconciliation and even socioeconomic status. And so, like I mentioned, we've spent some time overseas and different things, so that helps. But Round Rock is a very, very racially diverse city. I think most cities now are becoming that way if it's a city. And so we have, every culture is represented. You see people from every corner of the earth. You hear different languages spoken. We have, different, Muslim community centers. We have Buddhist temples. We have all kinds of stuff in the area. And so, yeah, we've always had that heart. And so now at Oasis, it's really cool. We actually had one of the guys that we hired to do our production for our Easter services, because we were at a set up tear down venue. He's not a believer, but that's one thing that he mentioned. He's like, it's really cool because you can, like, everybody from our community is represented here. And not just, with the tone of their skin, but also age range. We have tons of kids. I have 2 young kids, youth, young adults, all the way up to what we call seasoned saints, people that are in their 70s and 80s. And it's just something really cool that I think God has been doing and kind of graced us with. And so we have that diversity. And I think another thing that we're really passionate about is we definitely come from a very spirit-filled background, a very Pentecostal background. Some people may have no idea what that is, but it's something that can be a hard approach. And it's like you can either get into it and be crazy, or you can kind of stay away from it, like 10-foot pole. I'm going to I'm going to Heisman, get away from there. And I think God has kind of called us to introduce people to the gifts of the Spirit, to healing, to miracles, to prophecy, but also do it in a way where people can still come in knowing nothing about God, and we can take them to that place. And a way that we kind of describe it is like, instead of we don't want, nobody wants there to be a disconnect between, all the church people are here and the people that are just coming in are here as far as their knowledge and stuff. And so instead of kind of lowering ourselves, we say, hey, we want to pull them up to our level. So we're not just going to leave them down there. We don't want to just be like, oh, well, y'all don't know this, and you should know this passage, and you should, so we're very intentional. Like when we mention, Moses, we kind of give a little background on Moses, and not just like, oh, everybody knows the story of Moses. Everybody knows the story of David and Goliath, or everybody knows, who Paul is or whatever. And kind of trying to take people to that level of spiritual knowledge and biblical knowledge. So yeah, we do lots of prayer. We do lots of fasting. It's just something that has kind of been in my parents' DNA and now is in my DNA. And I think it's just something we're definitely seeing God do a lot of incredible things. We've seen people that have gotten miraculously set free from hardcore drug addiction. We've seen physical healings, a lot of great things like that.
Dude, that's awesome. Let's go and break some of that down. Like I hear all the time churches say, yeah, we're diverse, we're this. And then everyone on staff, everyone on stage, they look like me and you, right? And they're like a bunch of white guys or, Caucasian people. And so what advice or like what, recommendations would you have for ministries out there that are struggling when it comes to diversity, where everyone looks the same in their ministry?
Yeah, I definitely understand it's a challenge, because a lot of times when I talk to people, they're like, we don't want it to seem like we're just, having a token person on the stage, or that we're putting this person on staff. So I think it really has to do, just like any part of building a culture in a staff, in a team, in a business, in a church. You have to be the culture. You can say, we kind of use the phrase, you can put it up on the wall, you can put your values up on the wall or whatever, but are you really living those values? And so, the people that you're interacting with, are they all like you? And I'm not just talking at church, but in your neighborhood, at your kids' ball games, the types of music that you're listening to, the news that you're watching. And I think it's especially difficult in the day and age we live in, because it seems like our world is getting set up more and more for us to just live in echo chambers. So you can find the people that, that sound like you and that believe what you believe, and then you can just stick with those. So that's kind of some philosophical. I think practically, we are very intentional about, my dad has this phrase that says, what's on the stage stays. What's on the stage stays. And again, you don't want to, like, if you have one person of color in your church and they're not even a singer, be like, okay, well, we're going to make you a singer. Just that's super weird. But
Yeah.
we try to be very intentional, whether it's with our announcements, with our worship leaders, with even preaching, but especially those other, like I said, we do communion every week, so we'll have different people do communion, and so we'll try to intentionally, okay, let's get a lady to do it this week. Let's try to get, let's try to get a young person. Let's make sure that we're, having every person, like, not trying to force, but just, we have a lot of diversity on our leadership, and so let's make sure that all of our different leaders are getting an opportunity to be in those spots, and not just using people that maybe naturally we would be more inclined to. And I'm just saying that in a general sense of, it seems like in the world we live in today, that everyone, no matter what culture you are, race are, whatever, it's almost like the news and everyone is pushing us to kind of be more just with our little group.
Yeah.
And we try to fight against that as much as possible. So on all of our teams, if one of our teams starts to get heavy in one age group or in one ethnic group, obviously, again, it's not something where you're going to be like, hey, we're going to put people here that don't even know anything about this just to have the
Yeah.
diversity. But it's just kind of a conversation like, hey, we noticed that, the team, like, we'll talk to the team leader, like, everyone on your team kind of looks like you and is about your same age, and there's all these other people that could be there, why aren't they there? And so just conversations like that. And it can be, it can be awkward sometimes, it can be messy sometimes, but what I've found is that people appreciate you even trying to have the conversation, or you even trying to say, help me get better in this area, or let's get better in this area, even if it isn't an instant solution. Just the being open to it can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, man, that's so good. I think a lot of it too is, I always tell pastors that you're going to attract who you are, right? And
Yeah.
so if the voices from your stage and your leadership team are all young white people in their like 20s to 30s, maybe early 40s,
Yeah.
that's who you're going to attract. Right. And I think you guys had a huge advantage because your wife, she's Hispanic.
She's Hispanic.
Yeah, so my wife is Hispanic as well. And so, and then also you guys had your dad, who's obviously an older demographic. And so having them as part of your leadership, you're more like that's something, I'm going to be honest, we struggle at Vibrant attracting people over the age of 55 just because we just don't have a lot of people in our ministry that are of that age range. And we do have a handful, but that's one of the weak spots that I definitely want us to improve on. And I know our team wants to improve of like, how can we serve this demographic? And part of it too has to go to our area is a lot of old money of Houston, and they go to church where they go to church, and that's because where they've
Set in
always
their
gone.
ways.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're the new guys on the block. And so that has been something, a little bit of challenge for us. But I think it's awesome that you guys, had that in your leadership team from the beginning. And so that's an easy way to have, oh, hey, there's people here that look like me, right, when they show up on a Sunday.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And also my dad was raised in West Africa for a lot of his childhood. So that helps as well, with some of the cultural things. I will say, you mentioned that just about the stage and what's represented. I think even in your speaking and when you're giving talks and different things like that, we all have like our little anecdotes that we use in different things. And so even in that way, making sure that we're hitting, where we may be talking on a series on giving, and it could be easy to swing one way or the other, that people, have money and you just need to give, or you could swing the other way and like, hey, we're just going to help everybody because everybody's broke, everybody's in debt. And we have both ends of the spectrum. And so making sure that you're, like, hey, let's talk about, you may be in credit card debt, or you may be a millionaire and you need to use that money to leave a legacy, and use it, kind of preaching your values, I guess, in a way is a way to put it.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Well, let's talk a little bit about TikTok, man. I saw your stuff on there, and I even like just scrolling on TikTok one day, I like one of your lives showed up, and I was like, oh man, Alex is on here. Like, and I even commented like, what's up, man? And then I went to your page, and you had like thousands of, I think at that time you were probably around the 10 to 15K range.
Mm.
And so, man, what made you want to start posting and putting out content on TikTok?
Well, I think I've always had a passion about like getting things on the internet, like even from a decade ago. And I think things have just become more and more easily accessible to where we can have a studio in our living room, or whatever.
Yeah.
But specifically with TikTok, I think I just saw the opportunity that it's definitely going to be around for a while, and it's growing and growing just massively, leaps over bounds of every other social platform. And so the thing that really pushed me was I started to think about, I was like, man, probably in a year or two, everybody's going to be on TikTok. Like it's going to be the thing that everybody's on.
Yeah.
And just like Instagram, just like Twitter, if you hop on something early, you can set yourself up as someone that is an authority, and you can usually gain a lot more traction quicker because you're just there earlier, and then maybe there's not as many people doing what you're doing in your niche. So that's, I've always wanted to do it, but I think that's what really pushed me to do it, because I was listening to some content creator coaches, and I think even with Gary Vee, I saw a thing where he said, this is probably the last year that TikTok is going to give people the viral growth that people have been getting, because there's a thing with, and I don't know but it's about 4 years where a social platform like grows to kind of establish itself. And
Hmm.
if you can get in there in those first 4 years, and of course you still have to do all the still have to do the work, but you can usually set yourself up, get that first 10K, that first 50K, whatever, a lot easier than if you did it like now on Instagram. It's so hard to grow on Instagram versus 5 years ago, just because it's
Yeah.
oversaturated. So I think, there was the side of, I really have a heart for putting discipleship content out online. And I think it's just where we're at these days. I don't really have a theological debate about it or anything. To me, it's just like, hey, people are online. So if we want to go where people are at, they're spending 2 or 3 hours a day online. Let's go where they're at and learn how to do what we're already doing. We're already doing discipleship. We're already doing prayer. We're already doing whatever, and just doing that in the format that people are consuming right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus did the same thing, right? He would
Hmm.
go to where people were, and that's whenever he would deliver his message, right? And so I think in ministry, we need to do the same thing. And so that kind of leads me to my next question for you is like, what are your thoughts on churches and pastors utilizing TikTok? Like, do you think this is something that's worth their time?
I do. I do. I know a lot of pastors will probably struggle with it at first. But the cool thing about TikTok is it's designed to be very casual, and almost if you make it too fancy, like if your video's too like good of quality, TikTok almost like punishes you for that.
Mm,
So to me, it really sets it up well for a pastor to just grab their phone when they're got a few minutes in their office, whatever, maybe make sure there's a few good lights on, and then just record something. And now it's up to 3 minutes, so it doesn't even have to be necessarily like super fast. And I actually have tried to, I put out some stuff of like, hey, here's some ideas of what pastors can do. Like, you don't have to create new stuff, just take your sermon and your 3 points for your sermon, make one video for each of those 3 points, and then hey, that's
yeah.
3 days worth of videos. So I think it is something that's very important. And from what I've studied, not specifically with churches, but you see this with a lot of brands on TikTok, is a lot of brands, they will have almost like a spokesperson for their brand, because again, it's very much face to face. People want to see real life. They want to see you talking. They want to see, even if it's your office is messy, whatever, versus this really high quality produced ad. And so you'll even see these huge companies, and they have like a person that's just their job, is they just make TikToks, but the audience connects with that person specifically. So when they see that person, it makes it feel more like a relationship versus seeing a church, if that makes sense. I know you're not going to have
Yeah.
like the church in the shot, but so I think it really sets pastors up well. And I would even say, even if you have like maybe the pastor's like, well, I don't really want to have my own account, or I feel uncomfortable or whatever, the pastor could even be on the church account. And I think that would be a lot more helpful versus churches just doing things without really a consistent creator on their
Yeah.
channel, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think it's something that very, in my mind, I just look at it like 20 or 30 years ago, you had all these pastors and people that everybody was trying to get on TV. And it's like, if your ministry could get on TV, that was like the spot. And so that's how I kind of explain it to people, especially maybe pastors that are older Gen Xers or Gen Xers, people that are even boomers, is like, hey, this is just the new thing. So
Yeah.
it's not, you don't have to like try to get all worked up about it. It's just the new way to reach people. And yeah, you have to learn some different styles of speaking and how to work everything. But I think it's invaluable, because being online, I'll say being digital is only going to increase. So unless there's a nuclear apocalypse, we're not going away from the internet and online mediums with VR growing, with the metaverse. Like it's just going to get more. So my thing is like, hey, hop in now, get used to being on camera now, and it'll only be easier in the future.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Something I always tell pastors is, you don't want your content to look like an ad or a commercial, right? Because I feel like in ministry, we're so caught up in excellence. And like even me right now, if you look at my Zoom setup, I've got the fancy camera that like blur.
Yeah.
And so like I'm all about excellence. Don't get me wrong. Right. But ever since TiVo came out in like 2003, 2004, I don't really watch commercials. I skip past them. Right. And that's how people are nowadays, to where if they see something and it looks like an ad, they're just going to keep swiping. And so whenever you use the same camera that you use for streaming on a Sunday morning, and you go through and edit it and make it look super fancy, it typically doesn't perform as well, because people don't like being sold to. They feel like they're watching a commercial. And so what I always recommend is, for when you make content, like don't think of it as you're making your Sunday morning announcement video.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
So like because like those are two different things. And so I love it, man. Tell me, what are you seeing as far as the demographics on TikTok? Because a lot of the people I talk to, they're under the assumption that TikTok is just an app for like teenagers doing silly dances. And so like, what have you seen from your experience doing this?
Yeah. So I actually just saw a stat, and I can give you some of my personal stuff, but I actually just saw a stat that the demographic of 30 plus just became the majority on TikTok.
Wow.
Versus 29 and under. And I will say, I think most of those people, the reason that it seems that they're not there is a lot of those people are consuming and they're not creating anything. So they have an account, maybe they have like a profile picture, maybe they have like one dumb video doing something that's got like 20 views. But most people just have an account to like view stuff. And it is a lot of younger people that are the creators, but I think there's a lot more people, especially 30, 40-year-olds, and some even 50 and up, that are on the platform and that would watch your stuff. They may just not create their own stuff.
Yeah.
And then for
good,
me
man.
personally, I mean, I have seen a lot, a lot of my followers are, around my age or even a little older. So I'm 28. And so there's a ton of people that are in their late 20s, 30s, 40s. They're on there and they interact with my stuff. I mean, they'll comment, they'll like, all that sort of thing. Again, it's just when you go to their profile, there's really not a whole lot on there. So when you're, Pastor Joe Smith is scrolling through his For You page, it can't show the videos that haven't been created. So they're going to see a lot of young people. And then even with the whole dancing thing and stuff, I think even for the most part, even for the younger generation, it's morphed away from that. So for those that don't know, TikTok started as an app called Musical.ly, which was basically a karaoke app, and people kind of started doing dances with their karaoke. Then it changed, and so now the algorithm on TikTok is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And so if you sit on there for a couple of days, especially a week, and you like the things that you like, and then if you don't like something, hold it down and say not interested, it will find what you like. And then I don't know, I'm kind of a conspiracy guy. I don't know if it's listening to us or whatever, but you would be surprised, like things that, hey, you need to fix something in your house and some DIY thing comes up. So a lot of times, like on my feed, it's a lot of like marriage and like dad humor, like people making jokes about that. A lot of like DIY home improvement type stuff, because I'm into that. And then also a lot of educational things, because that's even when I like on YouTube, I watch a lot of, podcasts and self-help and teaching seminars and different things. And so stuff is on there. So I always tell people like, hey, give it a couple days, week or so, and it's going to start to find what you like and what you're actually interested in.
Yeah, I've seen too. It'll track like how long you watch the video and how if you watch it again and if you share it with someone or you like it. Like obviously those are things that it keeps track of. And there's a Christian comedian, and I heard him say like he was like, all these youth pastors out there will be like, man, these kids on TikTok just watching all these girls shaking their butts on the camera, and then he's like, bro, it's an algorithm. Like, so what it does is like, what you watch, right? What you consume on it, it's going to continue to feed that to you. And what's funny is like me working with Church Candy and working with all these churches, like I've been watching a lot of pastor content. And so now that's like all my feed is. And like, don't get me wrong. Like I want that, but like, I don't know. I'm more than just ministry. Like I also love.
I'm honest. Sometimes I'll hit not interested. I'm like, I want to laugh. I'm not really looking for like Bible study right now.
Yeah, like okay, this is great, but like I also love grilling, and I love like I was on steak TikTok for a while, and like all my recommended videos were like meats and how to grill this and that, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I started researching a lot of ministry stuff on there, and now that's all I see, which is great. Don't get me wrong, Jesus, like it's awesome.
Well, it brings up a good point too, like you said about pastors, and this is something that I'm actually trying to do a little bit more of, which caveat, I grew really rapidly, and then I've kind of been off for the past couple of weeks because my son was in the hospital and then he came home. And so and it was Easter. So it's been a little bit different the past couple of weeks, but again, people are interested. And I think this has always been true with congregations and pastors, but now we have more access than ever before, where people are used to their favorite celebrity, their favorite athlete, their favorite whatever. They know everything about their life because of Instagram stories, because of TikTok, because of course, news and all that. But just following this person on different social media accounts, it's like, oh yeah, I know their dog's name, and I know that their kids like this restaurant. And I'm not saying that we have to totally, I don't think people should be obsessed with their pastor necessarily, but I think it is a good point where it doesn't have to always be like the Bible study. It doesn't always have to be, you said kind of the announcements like, hey, we got a big service coming up this weekend. Even just like, I've seen people do some cool things, and it's people that I've never known, but I'm like, hey, this is pretty, where it's like, hey, this is what, let's go around and introduce our staff in the office and be like, and ask them like some super silly, dumb question, or like, hey, here's like a day in the life, or here, what do you think about this random, topic, or what's your favorite restaurant? And I think that creates a connection that then when the person does consume your content, whether it's on TikTok or whether they're attending your church or they maybe hop over to your YouTube to watch a sermon, I think they're a little bit more open and you have more of a human connection versus just I'm a person on a stage telling you about this ancient figure from this ancient book and you need to change your life. And like, it's like, oh no, like this guy seems pretty cool. Like this girl seems pretty cool. Like I know, they have fun with their kids, they have fun with their wife, and it's almost like a trust being built. And so I would encourage people even to look at doing some things like that and not always feel like you have to have this, deep revelation, like, word from God to post on there. Cause sometimes people just want something humorous. They just want to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. Bro, okay, think about this. You're almost at 18,000. If we round up, say like right around 20,000 people follow your TikTok account right now.
Yeah.
Right? I just looked it up. Madison Square Garden, like one of the most iconic stadiums in America that's in New York City, they hold right around 20,000 people. So like
Wow.
you're probably about a month away from being able to sell out Madison Square Garden with all your TikTok followers. Now,
Man,
I'm not saying
if
that to
only.
pump, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Now I'm not saying that to pump up your own ego, but I feel like a lot of the times we'll
right.
talk about, oh, these YouTubers have this many million subscribers, or this pastor has this many TikTok followers, and then it's just numbers, right? But to
Hmm.
really think 15,000, 18,000 people right now that you able to have a voice in their life, right? That you
Hmm.
get to speak life into. And so
Hmm.
what's that been like, man? Have you gotten some like DMs or comments, or like maybe even like people in person engaging with you guys? Like what's been the reaction like after, because I mean 20, almost 20,000 people. That's a whole lot.
Hmm.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. It's really all happened so quickly. But there has been different reactions. I think um, one reaction that I was really surprised about is the amount of people that kind of knew me like peripheral, like we've met before, kind of. They follow me maybe on Instagram or whatever. And my Instagram, it hasn't grown as rapidly, but my Instagram has like over doubled in the past couple of months too.
Wow.
So people look at that and they're like, why are you trying to do this? Like, what are you trying to get out of this? You know, where you're just trying to grow your own platform or grow your own whatever. And I posted something. I was kind of in my feels one day. I ended up taking it down because I was like, that's just not the person I want to be, like complaining online. But I was like, all this stuff that I'm doing, like I've been doing this for years. Like I started in like youth ministry, like full time, for those that know that life, when I was 19. So it's like I've been like doing little goofy, like, you know, God is like these AirPods, you know, like what it, like all that, like
Yeah.
I've been doing that stuff for years and years, and nobody complained about it then. And even on my Instagram, I've been posting sermon clips and stuff on my Instagram for almost 2 years now. And nobody complained about it until I started getting followers. And then all
Mm.
these other Christians and pastors were like, well, what's your motive behind this? And so I've kind of had to deal with that. I've definitely had to deal with, especially on TikTok, because your stuff does go on the For You page. And a couple of my videos have gotten some pretty broad reach. You'll have people that they're mad at God, mad at religion, whatever, and they'll comment or they'll DM and they'll,
You're
cuss
forcing
me
religion
out,
on
or
people.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
just, you're a blank idiot, and you should go, you should stop doing, like, very, very explicit language. So I've had some of that. And then but the majority has been good. And I think even like in my comments and on my live streams, I've had comments where people are like I had a video that probably my most popular video on TikTok was about forgiving your spouse, because God's forgiven you, so you should forgive your spouse. And it could be applied to anybody, but I was talking
Yeah.
specifically about spouses. And I had people comment on there. They were like, I just kicked my husband out, and I know that I need to go apologize to him now. Like,
Wow.
I was getting ready to like call a divorce lawyer, and like now I know that I need to like ask for forgiveness. And and then things where people are like, wow, like I'm not a Christian, but like this really like made me feel good, or like this really encouraged me, or
Yeah.
um how can I learn more about what you're talking about, things like that. So I don't think it's been like any huge like salvation thing, but the way I see it is like I'm not gonna be able to do a whole lot in 30 seconds, a minute, whatever, but it's just planting those seeds. And
Yeah.
and then I think, I haven't really had anyone that I know of who is just like random in the area that showed up because of my TikTok. That has happened because of my Instagram. I think that has to do because Instagram is a little bit more location based than
Yeah.
TikTok is. And some of the same clips that I posted on TikTok have reached people in our area, and they've showed up at our church. But the people that I think it's what I was speaking to a few minutes ago, the people that are already in my church that follow me on TikTok, it's they love it because it's like they're getting more insight into my life. And again, not that I'm anything special or like that I should be like a celebrity status at all, but I think it's just one of those things of like, when I talk about something on a Sunday, they may already like have heard about that because I talked about it on my TikTok the week before, and they kind of feel like they're like almost like on the inside, like, oh yeah, I already knew that that happened with his kid, or like I already knew that. And I think again, it just establishes that connection more. And when you do end up maybe saying something that's challenging or correcting or whatever, they feel more like, oh well, this is a real person and they go through struggles too. It's not just a
Yeah.
talking head on a stage telling me how to live my life.
Yeah, man. I think TikTok is so much more authentic than these
Hmm.
other platforms, right? Because what you're saying earlier about, man, I feel like I know this guy. I feel like I know this story about their kids. Like I'm sitting here thinking, oh, like there's all these influencers that check
Hmm.
that box for me personally that I feel like I
Right.
already know them. And if I saw them in person, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, and
Hmm.
I feel like I already had this connection there. And so that's interesting, man, that, um, just the growth that you've seen on their TikTok. Yeah, it's not location based, man, but I
Hmm.
think it's one of those things where if you continue to grow on that platform and reach more and more people, like it's going to eventually have a local reaction, right? You're eventually going
Yeah.
to get there. I think it's just you've got to have enough volume of
Right.
eyeballs on it. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, and we've seen some stuff online. So we've been streaming since COVID hit. We were streaming a little bit before, but we really started taking it serious when COVID hit.
Yeah.
So we've seen an increase in our views online, and I think it kind of coincided with my growth. So I think that has a little bit to do, because people will see a clip from a sermon, and then I always try to like do a call to action of, hey, my YouTube is linked in the description, and they'll go to the church YouTube, and there's 3 years worth of messages that they can watch on there. So yeah, I think it's had impact in those ways, people watching online and creating content. And again, I think the way that I think about it is not so much trying to get them in the building. I mean, I'm a big proponent of being in-person church. I mean, we have even midweek services, we have prayer meetings, like we're all about it. But I'm like, hey, let me plant these seeds. And even if they watch us online for a little while, maybe they'll
Yeah.
watch us online, but then maybe they'll find like a local church to be a part of. Like that's what I love about Pastor Joel Osteen. And I know there's a lot of different opinions about him, but I like at the end of his broadcast, he always says like, hey, find a local Bible believing church. And I think that's where is, even if people aren't coming, here in the Austin area to Oasis, it's like, hey, maybe they'll DM me one day and be like, hey, do you know of a church in Minneapolis or
Yeah.
Nashville or whatever? Because I just think the way the world is going, uh, whether we like it or not, so many people are spending their lives online. And I think as people come to Christ, they may spend a long time online before they ever go to an in-person experience. So I'm going to try to feed them as much as I can, and then hope that somebody can pick up the load locally and in person. That's obviously going to be able to know them better and be able to disciple them and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I totally see that too because like at Vibrant, for example, we've been utilizing TikTok as an ad strategy. Like, and it was almost exactly opposite of what you're doing to where our goal was how can we reach local people and get them connected in the building on
Yeah.
TikTok. And because we're doing that in Cairo Candy, for example, running marketing campaigns on TikTok using paid ads. Sorry if you hear my son.
You're good.
Him and my wife just got home from the store, so he's just coming to say hi. But
You're
anyways,
good. You're
we've
good.
been doing TikTok ad campaigns for our chiropractors, killing it. And because the platform is so new, not as many people are buying ads, so ads on TikTok are super super cheap.
Mm,
However, some of the issues that we've ran into are you you can't target like specific zip codes, right? You can only target what's
gotcha.
called a DMA. So like you guys would probably have to like if you want to show TikTok ads, it would be showing ads all over Austin, not just Round
Hmm.
Rock.
Right.
So that's an issue. And so one of the things we're doing is we'll start out the video like things about like we did one and it was have you seen the trend? And it's like things about blank that just make sense, right? So we did
Yeah.
one things about vibrant church in the woodlands.
Dun, 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 dun. Like
Yeah,
that's,
which
yeah.
we couldn't use that sound because it was copyrighted, so we had
Yeah.
to play around with it. But so that's one of the ones we did, and like whenever they're planning a visit for like the call to action, we'll say like, we are located in the Woodlands, Texas. Do you live within driving distance, or are you going to be joining us online? That way, like they can see like, oh, cool, like they're in the Woodlands and I'm in Katy. I'm not going to drive 45 minutes on a Sunday morning. Maybe they would,
Yeah.
but most people probably wouldn't in this area. And so that's some of the issues we've ran into. And so I love that you're using it in more of an organic way. Like, hey, like if people come in person, sure, awesome. But this is a way for us to reach people and really impact lives. The same thing that we're wanting to do in the building. You know, just using the platform not just as a way to reach people to grow our attendance, but to actually like, you know, impact lives where they're at. Man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, because I think,
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, I think like I know we're wrapping up, but I think I heard a long time ago, it's probably changed now, but when I was studying some market stuff a long time ago, they talked about like having like 7 pieces of like free content before you make like an ask, or before you say, hey, check out our product, or check out this link, whatever. And so that's kind of how I think about it a little bit. And we're even trying to start to implement that. We haven't done a good job, but even on our church socials, where it's like, hey, we're just giving you this stuff, like we don't want anything from you. And then every once in a while kind of hit you with that, like, hey, we'd love, if you're in the area, we'd love to meet you in person. So we're doing that. But then you mentioned something right there that I want to make sure we hit on if anybody's really thinking about doing this. One of another benefits of having, even if like your church team or volunteers running it, another benefit of having like an account that's Pastor Joe versus, you know, blank church, is you can have that personal account instead of a business account. And one of the huge things on TikTok is the sounds and the trends, like you mentioned, and you can't use those sounds if you're a business. So if you're a person, and again, it could be the church account, you know, everything, even a volunteer running it or whatever, but having that pastor's name on it allows you to, again, further kind of give that idea of like, hey, this is just an organic, like you could still be running ads and doing all that stuff. Like you can still do all that stuff through the creator program as a personal account, but it just would allow you to have kind of access to some of those more those viral things that are going to get you out there even more. So that's maybe an idea for someone that hasn't started yet. Maybe an idea to look into. And there's some things like, you know, if you have a personal account, you can't do a link in your bio until you have 1,000 followers, but it's really not that hard to get to 1,000 followers. So I wouldn't let that be the thing that's like, oh, we got to have a business account because we got to have a link in the bio. It's like, just start making content and you'll be able to get that pretty soon.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I love the whole strategy of let's give before we ask. Like a lot of the things that we'll do with our content strategy, and this is like on Facebook and Instagram ads, but we'll create content on there, like videos, right? That's just giving value, you know, like 3 things you can do to improve your marriage, or here's what the Bible says about X, right? And then we'll retarget people that watch those videos with ads inviting them to plan a visit. And so we'll have people show up on a Sunday and they'll be like, man, I just knew God was calling me to come to Vibrant because every time I turned around on Instagram, I just
saw the ad.
Yeah. And it's like, oh man, like we're so glad to have you here. And I believe Holy Spirit was calling you here too. Because it's kind of like what you said earlier, like we're just planting seeds and we're relying on Holy Spirit to, you know, really move in their heart for them to take a next step, whatever that might look like. But Alex,
and it wouldn't have worked if you didn't add the value before. You know, the ad wouldn't have worked as well. So, you know, it was God putting that in front of them and that sort of stuff. And that adding value, that's probably the biggest thing that anybody on whatever you're doing online is, nobody cares who you are, nobody cares what you're doing. what are you doing for them? What value you're going to add to them?
People are selfish, and that's just how they are.
It's true. That's what I always tell pastors. I'm like, why are we arguing? It's just reality. Like, you can say, well, people shouldn't be that way. They shouldn't think that way. I'm like, that's fine, but they do. So let's move forward, just knowing that they are that way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Alex, thank you so much. Such good insight. Where can people find you?
So mostly just on social. I don't have my own website. Our church website is oasistx.org. And my socials are on Instagram is at Alex Suber, Facebook at Alex Suber, and then TikTok is at Alex Suber with an underscore at the end. I wasn't early enough to get my name without Alex the Suber. Underscore. Yeah, I'm actually, because it's the dormant account that's like never posted anything. And now that I have some followers, I'm thinking about throwing my weight around a little bit and being like, hey, TikTok, can you give me that username? But yeah,
do it,
at
man.
Alex Suber with the underscore.
Do it, man. That's awesome. Well, guys, go follow Alex. Go comment and like all of his stuff as you see it show up on your feed to help the algorithm push it out to more people. But such a pleasure having you on here, man. And thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Church Candy Podcast. I'm going to link to Alex's info below this video. Shout out to Soulbox for the podcast intro. And don't forget to get your free copy of Plan Your Visit Playbook in the link below, planyourvisitplaybook.com. We'll see you in the next one.